In professional sports, a franchise player is an athlete who is not simply the best player on their team, but one that the team can build their franchise around for the foreseeable future.
Welcome into a brand new edition of Franchise Players here on your TGI Friday lineup on WWBG 1470 AM out in Guilford County every Friday afternoon at 5 p.m. If you missed it, you can catch us on WTOB 980 AM and 96.7 FM in Forsyth County, Winston-Salem area at 6 p.m. every Friday. I'm your host, Desmond Johnson. Loaded show for this Friday. Glad you could be with us here on NFL Draft Weekend. Brendan Marks from The Athletic will join us a little bit later on in the program to talk about Hubert Davis and the work he's been doing in Chapel Hill the past couple of weeks with recruiting for the University of North Carolina. And from 99.9 The Fan, Chris Lee and Dennis Cox will stop by, talk a little WWE, a little NBA. We got a nice little mix of sports talk for you today. But of course, as every other week, we have our special guest, David Glenn, joining us here in the Sports Buffet. Mr. Glenn, what's going on? How are you doing today?
Doing great, Des. Always fun to be with you.
So normally we bounce around to multiple topics when I have you on. I like to take advantage of the fact that you can talk about pretty much any sport. But with the NFL draft finally upon us, I feel like I've done probably 2 to 3 months worth of NFL draft content from the multiple shows and podcasts and stuff that I do that are Panther centric. So it got to a point for me last week around Monday, or this week, Monday, where I was like, I have nothing else to say. Like, we've said everything. There's nothing left to do until we get there. The NFL draft's a big deal and an event for the league and sports in general. Your latest article on chapelboro.com, it dives into how truly large the event has become. Talk to us a little bit about how many people are truly engaged with the NFL draft over the course of that weekend every year.
Yeah, Des, one of my favorite pieces of advice I've ever given or received in the journalism world is be curious. And I was curious about exactly how many millions of people were watching the NFL draft. So I wrote this article about it. And I'd say the majority of time as a journalist, when you research something, you're usually not completely surprised. In this particular case, I was overwhelmed by what I found. And the bottom line is this. I went to 2021, so just 2 years ago, and found a number that 12.5 million viewers tuned in to watch. That was the first round of the NFL draft. So not the whole 3-day extravaganza, but that's an average number. That means for those, what would that be? 4 hours of TV.
Yeah.
12.5 million households, basically, or viewers, better put, were watching the NFL draft's first round. In that same year, the average number of viewers for a Braves-Astros World Series baseball game was about 12 million. So the NFL is so powerful that a non-game, right? Not a tackle was made, not a pass was thrown, drew 12.5 million, and the most important games in the most important series of another very popular American sport, baseball, drew about 12 million less. So the NBA Finals drew about 10 million per game. The Stanley Cup Finals drew about 2.5 million per game. So at least it's not this way every single year. The numbers can bounce around a little bit. But 2 years ago, the first round of the NFL draft had more viewers than the average World Series game, the average NBA Finals game, or the average Stanley Cup Finals game. And that it's just insane to me, that reflection of the popularity of the National Football League, that many people care that much to tune in, even when it's not a Thursday or a Sunday during NFL season.
I was telling you off camera before we began that, obviously being a Carolina Panther fan and covering the team, our team picked first last night, drafting Alabama quarterback Bryce Young, which we kind of suspected the past couple of weeks. So at that point, I probably should have turned it off and did something else. But just the sheer idea of General Manager Scott Fitterer, they had a press conference right after they had picked. And I think David Newton or somebody threw out a question as they were Scott Fitterer and David Tepper were walking out of the press room or whatever. And he gets thrown a question of, are you going to trade up tonight? And Fitter's just like over his shoulder, I don't know. We'll see. And then they walk out. And I'm like, what? So now I watch this whole thing to see if he trade back up into the bottom of the first. They did not. But just from off of what you said there, that got me there for 4 hours. I was literally watching the draft and entertained by it. Teams that I don't care a lick about for 4 hours. And this pattern yesterday, there was so many trades in the first round, people bouncing up and down and all over the place. But before I get to those, Carolina selecting Bryce Young, number 1 overall. The overall aggression from the Panthers front office. Talk to me a little bit about that, because you've covered the Panthers for a long time, different regimes, different coaches. How refreshing is it to see what they're doing right now in comparison to, say, the Ron Rivera era or the John Fox era, where they didn't do anything like this, like they have this offseason?
I'm a huge fan of what they just did leading up to the draft and with the selection of Bryce Young last night. The reality is the Panthers have not made the playoffs since 2017. The Panthers have not been that superpower since they went to the Super Bowl in 2015. So not quite a decade ago, but that's a pretty darn long time. And obviously the Matt Rule era was mostly a debacle. When your biggest weakness or one of them is at the most important position on the field, there's nothing more that becomes a soul-sucking abyss to the fan base than when you just know you don't have the answer at quarterback.
Yeah.
And I would argue that since maybe halfway through 2018, when it started to become obvious that Cam Newton was not the Cam Newton MVP version or take him to the Super Bowl version, that's a long time to not have higher caliber quarterback play.
Going on 6 years. Yeah.
Right? And going into last night, I thought the Indianapolis Colts had a version of that same question. You know, since Andrew Luck had that unorthodox retirement in 2019, I look at those two franchises. They've both wrestled with quarterback for several years, and I would rather wake up being the team that traded up to number 1 and took Bryce Young of Alabama, which I'm confident will be a good pick, maybe even a great pick. I'd rather be the Panthers than the Colts, who rolled the dice with Anthony Richardson of Florida. I'm not a wizard. I can't tell you what's going to happen in the future, but I will sleep much better at night if I'm David Tepper or Scott Fitterer, knowing that Bryce Young is my guy, because I think Anthony Richardson is the classic example of boom or bust.
Yeah. It's only going to go one of two ways with Richardson. I don't think he's going to be a quote unquote average quarterback. He's either going to be really, really good or not good in the NFL. And we'll see, because it's intriguing. He was actually the other one that it seemed like we were kind of infatuated with a bit in terms of the Panther front office. Another quarterback, strange tale, quarterback Will Levis from Kentucky, projected top 4, slid all the way out of the first round last night. And of course, it feels like we have one every year where there's a prospect that Mel Kiper selects like early in the process, and then they just slide all the way down the first round board, and they're in that green room with their family, and the cameras keep panning to them, and it's just like nonstop, just watching them go through this excruciating ordeal. What do you think happened for not just one team, but all 32 teams to pass on Levis in the first round?
I think it's a mixture of events, because remember, only X number of teams in that first round wanted or needed a quarterback, right? So when you knew Bryce Young was going to go to the Panthers, you knew 2 others were going to go off the board very quickly, and they did. After that, I don't think there were a lot of teams that had quarterback on their mind. There were a couple, but if your scouts tell you that Will Levis is a 2nd, 3rd round grade, you know how GMs are. It's not wise to get too obsessed with a positional need, right? You don't want to force. You can be desperate at quarterback, but if you start lying to yourself about what your scouts are grading this candidate or that candidate, to me, that's one of the worst mistakes you can make as a talent evaluator. My heart broke for the kid. Des, I'll tell you this. I haven't been nervous in my life very often, but I did some work for the Make-A-Wish Foundation years ago during my show, and they asked me to stand on stage and do a bid where you're trying to raise money for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and it was a day with David Glenn. And I'm thinking to myself, man, I've had one-on-one interviews with United States presidents, famous writers, entertainers, athletes, coaches. I was really never nervous, to be honest about that. I was nervous knowing that all eyes are on me. I don't know if people are going to bid $11
Right, yeah.
for a day with David Glenn, right? I'm thinking this is nightmarish. Now it worked out well. We raised a lot of money. But that is what I thought of as I'm watching the poor guy with the cameras on him and his family and friends around him, and it's not his turn. I was not shocked that he fell out of the first round.
Me either. He was actually my pick to fall
right
first. Yeah.
And to me, that becomes, I'm not blaming ESPN or anybody else. Their job is to follow storylines. Quarterbacks are always valid storylines in the upper portion of the draft. But I just know that heart in your stomach feeling, man. When the world is watching you, I have no control over what people are going to bid on me. Zero. Unless I planted somebody in the audience, which in retrospect might have been a good idea.
Right, yeah.
Poor Will Levis, he didn't know which way things were going to go, but he's squirming in his chair, and he's going to be fine. But that is the kind of drama, as you suggest, that lures people in and keeps them coming back. Because even though that number for night one, 12.5 million average viewers I mentioned, the average for the entire draft, Des, reflects what you said earlier about how sometimes you'll spend chunks of 3 days. The average in recent years has been 6 to 8 million people for the 15 hours of the NFL.
That's ridiculous. We have nothing to do.
That's incredible. I'll put it this way. When Duke and Carolina play in men's basketball, that's like a 4 to 5 million person audience. And except for the NCAA tournament, that's the largest audience in all of college basketball in the entire year. The average round over 3 days is 6 to 8 million people. That's just mind-numbing and a credit to the popularity of the NFL.
Man, this is really just a beast. Like it's literally a 24-hour a day, 12-month operation at this point. And it feels like they're kind of like aiming at like the NBA, like as their rival in terms of taking up people's mind. And the NBA is kind of starting to respond to that, like in terms of, you want to mess with our Christmas Day? Because everybody kind of knows Christmas Day is the start of the NBA season on television. No, we're going to dump a whole bunch of NFL games on Christmas Day. And then, or like the NBA playoffs are going on. This is our time to shine. Oh, okay. We're just going to put our NFL draft on ABC and ESPN, do it over 3 days, and then just kind of suck away from the opening round of your NBA playoffs. So it feels like they go back and forth trying to get real estate in people's minds. David Glenn with us here, award-winning show host and columnist for chapelboro.com. You can follow him on Twitter at David Glenn Show. I was going to mention your Eagles. Your Eagles, I think they won round one because they're like literally rebuilding the 2021 Georgia defense, which ain't a bad thing. That is not a bad idea to go. I don't know what Howie Roseman is doing to have that team get to the Super Bowl and almost win it, and then to be able to secure his quarterback for the future on a pretty good deal for both sides. They draft 2 more Georgia defenders to go with the 2 they had already. So now you got 4 guys on this defense that played for Georgia for a 2-time national champion. You kept your secondary. You've pretty much replenished the offensive line. The Eagles are doing their thing. The Cardinals, too, I looked at and saw they had a pretty good round one. I think they drafted number 2. I got off of a radio hit while they were doing it and went to the restroom real quick and came back and saw that they had picked at 3. And I was like, what? I thought they had 2. Did they move down? And then I found out, oh, no, they moved up and got 3 too. So they got C.J. Stroud and Will Anderson. So that was pretty eye-opening. But outside of the draft, as we normally do sports buffet, but this is NFL style, I wanted to talk about 2 quarterbacks because we've been talking about them for the past couple of weeks. We got to put a nice, neat bow on this before I get you out of here. Lamar Jackson, right before the draft, and the Baltimore Ravens agreeing to the largest deal in Ravens history, 5 years, $260 million, $185 million guaranteed. It's going to average about $52 million per year. It makes Lamar Jackson the highest paid highest paid player in the NFL as it stands today, going into the upcoming season. What are your thoughts on Lamar actually representing himself? With you being a lawyer and it being kind of complicated, he took a lot of flack for doing that, but in the end, he looks like he came out okay.
He did come out okay. I do think, with the benefit of hindsight, we now know that Lamar Jackson just took an enormous risk this past season. And what I mean by that is he got a very similar deal in the end than he would have gotten if he had signed a year ago prior to last year. And what that means is he unnecessarily put his body and career at risk. If something horrible had happened to him this past season, he would have jeopardized that same deal he could have gotten 1 year ago. And to me, that's where agents come in. They have all the time in the world to look at that bigger picture. So there's an upside and a downside to every approach, right? Lamar Jackson saved himself X millions of dollars by not having an agent. And you and I, as his advisors, and part of my work as an attorney was actually advising sports media people when they climbed the career ladder enough to be negotiating with people like ESPN or other large media organizations. I was their attorney. I was their representative. And I wasn't getting a huge percentage, and they weren't mega million dollar deals either. But I was a second voice in the room. If my client was somebody as smart as you, I would say, Des, man, I'm here as an advisor. I'm here to whisper in your ear. I'm here to make sure you see the bigger picture. But in the end, you're your own man. I'm your consultant. I'm the little birdie on your shoulder. You can take my advice. You can ignore my advice, but I'm going to give you my thoughtful input, right? And I think Lamar Jackson rolls the dice a little bit by not having an agent. Again, the upside is he saved millions of dollars, probably. Agents would argue that if he had an agent, he wouldn't have just spent the last year risking his body unnecessarily without the security of a new deal.
That's a good point.
And they might also argue that their final number would have been higher than the final number he got. So there's no one size fits all answer to that question. Lamar has taken the road less traveled. There are not a lot of big dollar dudes representing themselves, but in the end, I think he won. And he's certainly an electrifying quarterback who earned what he got.
And now have Odell Beckham Jr. to throw to, and then the Ravens, after signing him, went out and got Zay Flowers from Boston College last night too to add to that wide receiver room, which prompted a happy response from Lamar online. So Ravens, that's going to be an interesting division with the Ravens, the Browns. Just Sean Watson will finally have a full offseason with the talent up there. The Steelers are always in the mix, and then of course Joe Burrow and the Bengals. So I mean that might be the toughest division in football, either that or the AFC East. So we'll see as the draft concludes and the rosters start to settle and we start to see who's going to be on these teams. Real quick before I get you out of here, Aaron Rodgers, that trade finally happens. He goes to the Jets right before the draft. The Jets finally get their guy. Real quick, are the Jets Super Bowl contenders?
No. No, I'm not. You mentioned the difficulty of their division. I think they're going to be far more interesting than they've been in many years, but I'm not ready to put them on that top tier of Super Bowl contenders.
Me either. It's I don't know. It's the Jets. Like, I'm just like, I don't know if I can say that.
Yeah.
Plus, out all this time, how long has Aaron Rodgers played? Like 17 years, something like that? Something like 16, right. 17. All this time, it felt like this dude has done everything in his power to try to be the anti-Brett Favre, like to do things differently than what Brett Favre did before him. And he's literally done every single thing that Brett Favre did on there and on the way out. Like, I fully expect the dude to be the Minnesota Vikings quarterback in 2 years. Like, the Jets will trade him or something. He'll go to Minnesota and he'll play there and have to play against Green Bay. We're like, we saw this movie before.
Yeah.
It's just strange that all this happened the way it did, but Aaron Rodgers is now a Jet. Again, follow David Glenn on Twitter at David Glenn Show. You can read his work in chapelworld.com. If you want to check out that article about the NFL draft, it is live right now, so you can go over there and check that out. We will see you again in 2 weeks, my friend. We should be pretty knee-deep in the NBA playoffs at that point, so we'll have some more to discuss then.
Always fun, Des. Keep up the good work.
Coming up, more from Franchise Players, 99.9 The Fans. Chris Lee and Dennis Cox will join me. We'll talk a little WWE and some NBA playoffs. You're listening to the Franchise Players here on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
In professional sports, a franchise player is an athlete who is not simply the best player on their team, but one that the team can build their franchise around for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
Welcome back into Franchise Players here on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com, WWBG 1470 AM and WTOB 980 AM, 96.7 FM in the Triad every Friday afternoon. I'm your host, Desmond Johnson. Shout out to David Glenn, who just stopped by and gave us a little bit of NFL draft talk. Had to go bring my boys in, Chris Lee, Dennis Cox from 99.9 The Fan out in Raleigh. I had some stuff I got to ask you guys. I had to get y'all hyped, before I brought you on to a little Kendrick Lamar bringing us in there.
Yes,
What's
sir.
going on?
Hey, I respect it.
Yeah, we're like the most hated people in Raleigh right now.
Are we? Are we?
I wasn't going to touch on the whole situation. I said my piece on Twitter and it was like, I'm in mine right there. But yeah, man, I know it's been kind of a wild couple of hours out in Raleigh dealing with everything. What's the vibes, y'all? Good? Because it's just kind of coming down. You guys are going to be holding down that spot today, and you did yesterday as well, that afternoon spot. But you know how it goes in this industry when something like that goes down. So
the vibes are that me and Dennis are really good at what we do together. We have an opportunity to do this, but we also have a much love and respect for Joe Obius and Joe Giglio, people that we love, admire, adore, worked with, still wish we could still work with them. But Desmond, you've been through it. I've been through it. Dennis has been through it. When you work in this industry, sometimes you just get that knock and you have to go into an office.
You're the last
one. All of a
up.
sudden you find out that you don't have a job anymore.
Yeah.
And so the people who come after that person don't know anything, they don't know the things that even, the stuff that the person who got fired, they know about the same amount of information.
Yep.
And they're just simply filling in.
Yeah, it's an unenviable position, to say the least.
Yeah, for real.
But you know what?
I've been yeah.
But the way radio works, it's on 24/7. So something has to fill the airtime. And that's just
we talk about sports. It's always the next man up, and it works the same in radio.
No
like the person who's playing behind the guy that gets cut from whatever professional team. Like, whoever played behind Steve Smith when he got cut from the Panthers didn't like the fact that Steve Smith got cut from the Panthers. Yeah. But he also was told, okay, now you're going to get more snaps.
You're up to bat. You know what I mean? And it's crazy too, because the one thing I'd learned, because I've been on both sides. I've been that guy that had to come in and replace someone that was on their way out, and I've also been that guy that got that knock on the door on a Monday or whatever, and had to go find out why they needed me up in HR all of a sudden. I haven't done anything, like, well, why am I up here? But yeah, it's a weird feeling to be in. It's crazy too, because that taught me that there is no job that's untouchable in radio. Like there's no situation. Hell,
very true.
The guest I just had on before you, David Glenn, he would do the same thing. And you would think that, at the time he had his show on pretty much every frequency across the state of North Carolina. And that happened to him. So, I mean, it happens. It is what it is. Hopefully, Obies and Giglio will be able to find a place if they want to continue doing radio. They'll be able to find some place pretty soon. But that's one of them things that's going on. So it's kind of strange, too, because I was going to put together a panel of sports talk personalities in radio to talk about that very thing, not what happened over there, but sports talk radio kind of contracting a little bit. I was talking to Dimitri Ravenos over at Barrett Sports Media. Yeah. He wrote an article back during COVID about this, about how radio stations aren't as busy or as full as they were before. Kind of the same thing was happening in the newspapers in terms of it getting gutted. And when I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, I just went through this, like watching this happen.
TV news stations as well.
Yeah, it's local TV news too. Yeah. So I'll probably save it for another day. Maybe when we get towards the summer, the dog days when we need stuff to talk about. I'll probably put together an all-star panel, bring you guys in, because pretty much all of us have been at one point or another affected by that. I want to get to some fun stuff.
Please.
Triple H, he finally did it. I've been saying it for really since Roman took the Universal title or the WWE title at last year's WrestleMania. I was like, A, he's going to have this thing for a long time. B, the only way you can really do this is either by triple threat or Triple H brings out the big gold belt and they reinstitute it. And lo and behold, on Monday night, he brings out a updated version of the big gold belt. I've seen a lot of people say it's ugly. I actually really like it. Like it's a homage to the old big gold belt, the NWA, WCW belt, but it kind of looks like the AEW belt too. It's almost like a snarky kind of push at it. Thoughts on this belt? Like, for starters, did they need to put this belt out there? Does it hamper Reigns' run? What are your thoughts when you finally saw that they're going to be introducing a brand new title?
I'm 50-50 on this. I love the look of the belt. I think it looks really good. We were on your show before, and I said that I was thinking that maybe night one, Roman would have two separate, title defenses. Night one, he would lose to Cody. Cody would go off and do something else, and he'd retain one of them on night two and whatever, and it kind of still keeps the streak going. So I guess, without him losing, it keeps it around. I thought it was interesting too how they did it. Triple H kind of shaded Roman Reigns while he was in the process.
He did,
He was kind of like, you deserve a champion that could always fight for you, and Roman's
always
not
be
here. And Roman asked you to acknowledge him, but this is somebody you could be proud of. Whatever he said, it was just, I thought it was very interesting. Which it was like, is this building to Roman Reigns basically just winning this belt too?
Yeah,
at SummerSlam, and he's just gonna have 3 of them. Like that's what I was thinking.
Sticking all the Infinity Stones. Yeah, pretty much. That's kind of how they booked them. They've kind of booked them that way.
Yeah.
That's
just
hilarious.
Do the Kenny Omega draped in gold walkout, just multiple
Why not?
belts just hanging off him. Hey, you know what? Do it.
Like Ultimo Dragon back in WCW back in the day.
Oh gosh, yes, absolutely. Do that.
They might as well. I mean, give me the best scenario for who wins the World Heavyweight title at Night of Champions. Is there a group of wrestlers you feel like should be in the mix for this with the way current storylines are?
I don't know. The name that first pops in my head is Cody Rhodes, because obviously his dad carried that belt, or that style looking belt, for a few times.
I watched his dad win that belt.
Yeah, so that makes sense, and maybe this is all part of it. This is the chase for Cody, and this is what he gets to chase. But either way, it kind of still feels like it's a, lack of a better term, a consolation prize, because you didn't beat Roman. But here you are, you're a world champion, but you never actually beat Roman.
So I think this belt is going to be perfect for somebody like a Rollins, somebody like a Drew McIntyre,
and Balor.
Those types of guys that because it's almost like they are like Patrick Ewing and Karl Malone and John Stockton right now. Like they're in the Jordan era, and they don't get a chance to hold a championship right now because, Roman is so dominant. So to keep those guys happy, let's create this belt. There's the rumors that McIntyre could go to AEW, and if he does, he could pop up at their Wembley Stadium show, which would go crazy if that were to happen. So this is probably a smart move for WWE to keep other people around, at least for the interim. I think the money is in Cody still beating Roman Reigns next year. You see a year-long chase, him beating Lesnar, him going through all these other ups and downs, because even though his father did have that belt, the belt that did elude him was the WWE title.
Yep.
Right.
And his family has never had the WWE title. So for him to do what his brother and his father could never do, I think that is where the money is, and that's where the chase goes.
I don't know if they're going to unify. Well, I guess they have unified. Roman kind of just did it. I mean, this has happened before. And that was the solution before when Randy Orton won him off of John Cena. That was the solution, that they made the Universal title, and they merged that other one into that one WWE title. It feels like they're about to do that again, but the image of Roman holding 2 belts is kind of like the thing. This is the thing people don't really understand. When I go online, I talk about this, and Cody should have won, or this, that, and the third. They have built this entire Roman Reigns character behind the idea that he is champion. If you really think about it, he's had this belt pretty much from the beginning of this run. We haven't seen Roman Reigns without a belt in this character before. So it's it's not like it was like NWO, they would have Hulk Hogan without the belt for a little bit, and it felt like they were kind of weaker without it, and then they figure out a way to put it back on him. They're not doing it like that. They're just kind of letting him mow through the roster. I'm sitting there looking at it, and I'm like, well, who has he not fought? He's pretty much beat everybody except for Bobby Lashley. They've kept them separate. He fought Balor already. He's fought everybody. I'm trying to think. Sheamus? I don't know who's left.
Sheamus, Braun Strowman. I think you mentioned it. Bobby Lashley could
he
probably
beat
come
Strowman
up
for the belt to begin with, but of course they can go back to that.
I mean, you can circle back around with Strowman. I think there's money in maybe bringing up Braun Breaker from NXT, have him go through a hellified run and then run into Roman Reigns or something. And then maybe that works between him and Cody. Who's going to be the next legacy wrestler to win this off of Roman?
Yeah.
I still think there are different directions they can go. They'll figure something out. And I think that this belt being introduced now that's not a coincidence. Something's going to happen with that with Roman.
It's the same old. They unify it, then they split it back up. They unify it, they split it back up. And like you said, probably Roman wins this at some point, because why not? But you know what? Honestly, maybe that's the way to even do it. Make him even stronger. It's I got 3 of these suckers. What y'all going to do about it?
My idea would be, if I was booking this, that you do the thing with Cody like they're doing right now, where it's basically Hard Times 2.0, where you're going to make them kind of go through, because he didn't really earn the right, other than winning the Royal Rumble, to beat Roman Reigns on that stage. He never even main evented WrestleMania. So let him go through the roster and take those lumps and build that up, and then let him win Money in the Bank. Let him walk around with the briefcase like the length of time Seth Rollins did, almost like a year, basically. Just have it, carry it around, and threaten to cash in wherever, and that's when maybe you could do it then. But then the cash in wouldn't be for both belts; it would be for a belt of his choosing. So he could cash in and get the WWE title. Roman's the Universal Champion, but then you got 3 world champions walking around. So it's like, I don't know how this works.
I think that, if he does the cash in thing, it makes him a heel again. I wouldn't be surprised if whoever wins it, let's say, some type of Weasley heel, ends up winning Money in the Bank. Cody finally gets it done the next night on Raw when he's getting beat up. Now it's taken back, and now he's chasing all over again.
Yeah,
because there's something about Cody that makes people want to boo him when he's on top. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
You love him during the chase, but once he gets there, it's like, forget this guy. I don't know what it is.
That's why I didn't want him to win it. It's like, what do you do with him after he does it?
Yeah, for him, the money is always in the chase. So I think you keep him away from Money in the Bank.
Let me switch over real quick. NBA playoffs. I was realizing this week because the main 2 series I've been watching are actually later on tonight. Sacramento is taking on Golden State. Golden State trying to advance to the second round. They're up 3-2. That's 8:00 on ESPN. Then at 10:30, you've got this Memphis Los Angeles Lakers series that I've been watching as well. Those have been the main 2 series I've been keeping up with. Is Steph Curry the best player currently in the league? Like, we've tippy-toed around this topic now for probably about 6 or 7 years. There's always been somebody else, but really over the past 12 months, if you look at Steph's resume, what he's done, finals MVP, he pretty much willed them to the title last year, and what he's doing right now, is there a better player top to bottom in the NBA right now in terms of what he brings to the table, his skills, his ability to win on the biggest stage? Is Steph the best player right now, like in the world?
I don't know. Hard to say no.
Yeah.
I generally stay away from these like who's best in the league stuff things right now because it's so subjective. If you're gonna say he is, sure, I won't disagree with you. If you would tell me LeBron James is, sure. You can tell me Luka Doncic is. I know that this team didn't make the playoffs, but that's for various other reasons. But if you were telling me that, okay, sure.
And LeBron, I don't think LeBron can be in that conversation anymore.
Yeah,
like he's like on day, off day, on day. Like he's 38.
Yeah, so that's fair. But you can tell me Nikola Jokic is the best player in the league right now because his skill set is so unique for what his size and his build is. You could tell me that, and I would say, okay, sure.
So let me ask you a question then, Dennis, because I'm trying to find a superhero that kind of fits this mold.
Okay.
What superhero, because I don't look at comics and stuff, that's his realm.
Yeah.
Is there a superhero that is not like he's not the strongest?
Okay.
He doesn't have the best superpower, but for some reason he's always there to win. Because I think that's Steph Curry. I don't know if there's anybody like that.
Spider-Man.
But it's like you can poke holes through everything about Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Like he's not the prototypical guy. He's not if you were to build an NBA player from scratch, it would not come out as Steph Curry. But somehow or another, through his work, his determination, and his skill to handle the ball and to shoot, he does seem to come out on top. And I don't know if there is like a guy like that where it's like on the surface he's weak, but every time you put him 1-on-1 against somebody else, he seems to be able to squeak it out.
Batman.
I was gonna say
Batman legit, because Batman has zero superpowers. He still comes out on top.
He grew up rich too.
He did.
So maybe that's it. Maybe that's it.
I don't know. Batman's mama looked like Sonya, but hey,
R.I.P. Thomas and Martha.
And I've been talking to Steph a lot this week too because of Bryce Young, and those comparisons have been coming up with Bryce Young and Steph Curry. Of course, the Panthers winning, well, not winning the draft, but taking Bryce Young #1 overall last night. Before I get over that, I was going to ask another question in the NBA because something Giannis said on his exit the other night. It's been stuck in my head ever since he did it. The back and forth he had with that reporter, where the reporter was asking basically, did he consider the season a failure? Them losing. For those who know, the Bucks fell to the Miami Heat. The Bucks were the #1 seed in the East, had the best record in the NBA. Fell to the 8th seed Heat. Jimmy Butler went off 100 points in the last 2 games, but they lost 4-1. So it was a gentleman's sweep. And he said that it wasn't considered a failure, and he gave out a bunch of examples as to why it wasn't. But then I sat on it, and I'm like, you were the 1 seed. You were the 1 seed. You had home court advantage. and you lost 4-1, like to the 8th seed. That is a failure, isn't it?
This is another thing I'm 50-50
I
on.
mean,
because I do understand what he's saying. Like, it's, Michael Jordan won 6 times out of his 15 years. So was he a failure 9 of those years? I completely get what he's saying with that. But when you are considered the best player in the world with the team who is the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, and you win 1 playoff game before you are eliminated in the first round, that's not good. I don't think that it's a failure on Giannis, but I do think that the Bucks need to do a little bit of soul searching, and he needs to get another Robin. Chris Middleton is getting, maybe even another coach, but Chris Middleton is getting really old, and Drew Holiday, good player, but you shouldn't be depending on him to be your number 3 scorer.
Dennis, is it a failure?
Yeah, I would say it is. I mean, it's a team failure. I never put the wins and losses on one guy. A lot of people forget that, hey, Jordan and the Bulls got swept in the first round of the playoffs before, so it's happened. I will say,
though, he was young.
It was
before he was already a champion. So like Giannis is already. It
was the '86 Celtics. Like they're like a top 3 team of all time. Like,
but you know what? It's something that we still forget.
I mean, it happened.
Exactly, it happened.
What is it? Jimmy Butler and the Heat.
But that's my point. Like, I mean, when Giannis said that, I'm like, okay, that's true. But Jordan wasn't on the 1 seed all those years. Like the Bulls weren't the 1 seed with the best record and the best player, like unanimously. Like all those years that he didn't make the NBA Finals, the years that he was, they did. So it's like, yeah, I get you, Giannis, but
I will say him getting hurt obviously didn't help. Middleton, as Chris mentioned, his play just dropped, and I don't think we put enough of this on Drew Holiday in terms of his lack of offensive production. Yeah, he's great on defense, but his lack of offensive production, offensive efficiency was not there. I will say the person that they miss is Malcolm Brogdon.
Oh,
the NBA 6th Man of the Year. That's the guy that they miss is Malcolm Brogdon.
True.
That's the guy that they miss is him.
However,
Malcolm Brogdon.
They have gotten some really good production from Grayson Allen. I will say that.
Yeah, but you got to take a shot before the buzzer hits.
Yeah, you got to do that too.
I was only saying that to see what Desmond was saying. He agreed. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
He has surprised me. He looks like he's aged 15 years since he's
on Earth.
NBA, but still, he has surprised me.
He's starting to look more and more like Ted Cruz right now. Right?
A little bit, yeah. He does have a little Ted Cruz vibe going on. It's
Is that the comparison we want to make?
No, he looks like Ted Cruz. I don't know if he is Ted Cruz. He looks like.
We thought he was Ted Cruz's kid when he was at Duke. Like, is that Ted Cruz's son? Chris Lee and Dennis Cox joined us here from 99.9 The Fan. Before I get you guys out of here real quick, still in the NBA, what is your pick right now for the NBA Finals? Like, what would you like to see when we get to June with the teams that are kind of left here?
Warriors and Celtics again.
Warriors.
I think it was a fun series. There are differences now because like you're not going to see the exact same 2 teams. Ime Udoka is not the head coach of the Boston Celtics now. We saw what happened to him, how publicly he was shamed, and now you have Joe Mazzulla who's there. So how is Joe Mazzulla going to deal with that? Now, how is Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown going to step up together because they know the embarrassment of being up in a series and then you end up losing in the championship. And then on the Warriors side, they're fractured. They're not the same team from last year. They're not as good as on defense. Draymond Green is not himself. And he punched old boy at the beginning of the season, and they haven't been right since.
Or you can
so
say
what's going to happen?
He has been himself.
Maybe he was himself, yeah.
He has been himself.
Me and B-Dot talked about that like the week after it happened, and we were just like stunned that Jordan Poole could go back to work and like actually do this. Because I was like, if that happened to us, it's on site. Like you can't
every time.
You can't just punch some dude in the face at work and then go back to work the next day and work with him, like be in the starting lineup with him. And that's what they've done. It makes me feel like Draymond's not going to be there next year. Like they're going to move on from Draymond. They looked better without him, to be honest. The game he had to sit out, they looked fantastic. So maybe
I recognize that too. That's why he's comfortable coming off the bench.
Yeah. So we'll see. Mine is Lakers Celtics. I picked it at the beginning of the year. Even when the Lakers, this wasn't even the same Laker team.
Totally different team.
They have a good chance now if they can get there, but it's on AD, which makes me nervous because if it's on AD, I don't know which AD I'm getting. Am I getting 31-point AD? Am I getting 12-point AD? Like, is he going to get hurt?
I say he's more likely to get hurt.
Yeah.
Let's be real. Let's go. Anthony Davis is an injury waiting to happen.
Every time he hits the floor, I just go, oh no. And then, like, to his credit, he has played through it in the series because he's ran into the goalpost. He ran to the goalpost with his hip the other day. He's done all this stuff, and he's still playing through it. So I give him some credit for that.
I will say, anytime he steps on the court, I think he's going to get
Yeah.
like just walking on the court. Like, oh,
roll out mats for him when he steps
like,
on the
we're
court.
about to do it. We're about to do the tip off. Is he hurt?
Like, no.
I have a question for you, Desmond.
Sure.
More disappointing, Bucks or Clippers?
Bucks, because they had everybody available. That's my
not the whole series though.
Not the whole series. The Clippers. This has been going on with the Clippers since 2018. Like, yeah. Kawhi's never been healthy since he's been there, and neither is Paul George. Really. They've only, I don't know how many times they've been on the court together.
Maybe as much as you and I have. The three of us.
But it's the Clippers. You know what I mean? Like, it's the Clippers. So, like, how much is it really? Did we really expect them to make this work? Like, on paper, I guess we were like, oh, this could work, but then we're like, it's the Clippers. Something's going to go wrong. And literally, the Clipper curse, it's continuing to happen. I'd probably say Bucks, just because people were picking them to make the finals and probably win a ring. And for them to lose to the 8 seed 4-1, like, not a 7-game series, like, they lost 4 convincingly, like, to the Heat. Like, I'm going to go with the Bucks on that.
To a Heat team that almost didn't even get out of the play-in.
Yep, the Heat team they don't even like each other. Like, if you watch them play, they play like they hate each other. Like, they want the season to end.
It makes them work.
They make it to the finals. Yeah. They're gonna make it to the finals. Yeah. Oh my God! Let me get you guys out of here. Definitely check out Chris Lee and Dennis Cox, 99.9 The Fan. They'll be holding down the afternoon slot here for a bit until they decide what's going to go forward over there. So
mostly Dennis. I'll be coming in a couple times a week.
We'll find out.
Yeah, it'll be a plethora of people. But we have one last Saturday for Culture State Saturday, so you can listen to us tomorrow on 99.9 The Fan from 10 to noon.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you ever need a Panther analyst or anything, I'm around. You know, hit me up. I'm on a billion Panther things right now. It feels like I had to stop talking Panthers on Monday because I was like, I've said everything there is to say. Like
with your good friend Jonathan Stewart, which is a big flex.
Yeah.
Yes, and he's actually going to be presenting tonight, the 2nd round pick. If we have it, I don't know what Footer's going to do with it, but if we have it, I don't know if I'm supposed to be saying this out loud, but yeah, he's supposed to be presenting the 2nd round pick for the Panthers.
Desmond just broke some news.
Okay.
Yeah,
Des, what's up?
You heard it here first. So we'll be back in just a bit. Brendan Marks from the Athletics is going to join us. We're going to talk a little Hubert Davis in North Carolina, what he's been doing in the transfer portal, getting busy with those 6 open scholarships. He's got 4 of them filled. We'll talk about that and the possibility of Elliot Cadeau possibly reclassifying. You're listening to the Franchise Players here on TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com.
Franchise players are often referred to as the face of the franchise.
Yeah.
Welcome back into Franchise Players here on TGI Friday, your Friday sports talk lineup on WWBG 1470 AM in Greensboro. If you missed this episode, again, you can catch it on WTOB 980 AM, 96.7 FM in the Winston-Salem, Forsyth County area. I'm your host, Desmond Johnson. Shout out to David Glenn, who joined us earlier on to talk a little NFL draft, and to Dennis Cox and Chris Lee from 99.9 The Fan out in Raleigh. Go check out their work. Joining us right now, he is the beat writer for The Athletic for North Carolina and Duke. It's Brendan Marks joining the show, friend of the program. What's going on, Brendan?
Hey, I'm doing all right. Appreciate you having me.
So I wanted to grab you because, of course, people know I'm a Carolina fan. I'm a huge fan of Hubert Davis. He took a lot of hits last year for the performance of the team, but Hubert's been busy. Currently with a 4-man transfer class as it's constructed as we do this. To you, starting off here, which transfer is the biggest impact on your mind to this roster going into next year?
Yeah, I don't think it's particularly close. I think it's by far and away Harrison Ingram. This is a guy who North Carolina recruited heavily in high school, former 5-star McDonald's All-American, had offers everywhere in the country. He ultimately goes to Stanford, but in the transfer portal era, that's why you keep your notes from a couple of years back. So, Ingram comes in, and he's a guy who he might not be necessarily the floor spacer that a lot of North Carolina fans would think the team needs. And Hubert Davis has done that with a couple other portal additions. But I'm really interested to see what he can do as a passer. This is a guy who has a ton of size. He's 6'8", 230-ish pounds, but is really good in the pick and roll, can make those kick out passes, very smart and willing with his vision. I think that's something that can really help North Carolina's ball movement, which after last season definitely needs some help as well.
Yeah, So I thought that was an interesting addition as well, and it's quality pickups that clearly Hubert was looking for more shooting than what he got last year, and the guys that he has coming in, Cormac Ryan from Notre Dame, Paxton Wojcik, I don't know if I said his last name right. They're all pretty decent to good 3-point shooters that Hubert's actually seen, like in person. I noticed that too. They're off the squads that we actually played against. The latest on Hubert, I didn't realize this, but they're in the middle of recruiting 5-star power forward Jaron Stevenson for the 2024 class, which is currently ranked number 1 with the guys that he currently has in it. Give us the latest on that from what you've heard. Do you have like a crystal ball prediction or anything like that regarding Stevenson yet?
Yeah, if I actually got to see him play over the past weekend. I was down in Georgia for the first session of EYBL, and he was there along with a couple of North Carolina commits in that same 2024 class. Elliot Cadeau was there, James Brown was there, Drake Powell. Drake Powell is actually probably the guy in that 2024 class I'm most excited about. I think he can be a legit, 3-and-D 2-way wing. But as far as Stevenson is concerned, yeah, he's really athletic. He's got good size, 6'8", 6'9". I will say that at this point, we're talking about a UNC class that already has 4 commits in 2024. A lot of guys who are going to come in and play immediately. So I think sometimes you get caught up in the hype of the stars and winning the recruiting wars, and usually it's Duke fans who are worried about that. So it's a little different to be talking about it with North Carolina. And Stevenson is a nice player, but it does also seem like he has some other options right now. Ultimately, if I had to guess where he goes, I actually wouldn't be surprised if he ends up at Virginia. But that said, North Carolina's 2024 class is already in really good shape. And, the more pressing question there is, does Elliot Cadeau ultimately reclassify? So
that's what I was just about to ask you, because you had mentioned him in that answer. 5-star point guard Elliot Cadeau. I've noticed that he's started to rise up the ranks with some performances here on the circuit the past couple of weeks. I got a chance to watch him a little bit. It was ESPN. I think it was like a national championship game or something that was on. That him and another Carolina kid was in that game too. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was the kids coming in this year.
Simeon Wilcher.
Yeah.
Or no, it was Zayden High. Yeah.
Zayden High. Yeah. The big man. So chances of Cadeau reclassifying and coming to Chapel Hill this year, because I've noticed that Hubert's got 2 scholarships open. I would think he learned his lesson from last year, how they lost Gigi Jackson when Gigi wanted to reclassify and there was no scholarships available. Gigi ends up going to South Carolina. They don't get that extra player, top 5 recruit, basically, that they thought they were going to get. Do you think Hubert learns his lesson from that? Do you think they bring up Cadeau? Does he stay in 24? What are you hearing regarding that?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts here. And for starters, let me add this. I think it's so smart that you bring up the Gigi Jackson situation, because I think in hindsight, you look at that and it actually wasn't necessarily a bad thing for North Carolina that he didn't end up coming, because you look at the season he had at South Carolina, a lot of off-court drama. There's a chance he doesn't even go in the first round of the draft this year. So for as much recruiting hype as there was around Gigi Jackson, ultimately did it pan out the way that I think a lot of people thought? No, it didn't. So when you talk about learning a lesson there, I do think there's a lesson there, but the lesson may be, okay, hold on. If we reclassify, maybe this isn't going to work out as well as we thought. To me personally, my opinion, I don't think it makes a lot of sense for Cadeau to reclassify. I think that it creates a couple of problems, actually. Number one, with Caleb Love transferring out of the program, RJ Davis is the person who everyone I've talked to, UNC is committed to him as point guard 1. They want to give him his opportunity sort of to be the primary ball handler, not having to split a backcourt. And I think if you bring Cadeau up, you're obviously going against that, which you've been saying for the past couple of weeks. Number two, if you do that right now, Cadeau is not good enough to play off ball. And so you are going to force RJ Davis to play shooting guard in that situation, which I don't think puts him in the best situation to be successful. It also means that you're starting 2 guards who are under 6'1", which is really problematic from a defensive standpoint. And the last thing that I would add there is UNC already has a borderline 5-star guard coming in this year in Simeon Wilcher. So at this point, UNC's backcourt is RJ Davis, Seth Trimble, Simeon Wilcher, DeMarco Dunn, and Cormac Ryan. It's going to be hard to find playing time for 5 guys as is.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Yeah.
But now you're talking about bringing in a 6th too. That's going to push everybody else down. You're almost certainly going to send somebody else out the door.
Yeah.
to me, I just think it makes a lot more sense from North Carolina's perspective strictly to wait and bring Elliott in a year from now when RJ is gone. You have more playing time that's probably going to be available. And also he gets to come in and he's coming in with another group, of freshmen who I think they can all sort of learn and grow together. But certainly the Cadeaux and Elliott, I talked to him over the weekend. He said, I think I can play at that level next year. But in my opinion, it would be in UNC's best interest to try and keep him in that 24 class.
Okay, you convinced me because I was on borderline on the fence until you just did that. And now I'm like, okay, it makes total sense for him to not come this year, especially with the mentality of with the transfer portal there. You make an excellent point. You bring him in, it's going to push somebody back out because they're not going to get any minutes. So, and plus we still haven't really seen, I get it. Hubert didn't play the bench last year because to be honest, the bench wasn't very good. So like I see people saying, well, he doesn't know how to use his bench. I think he does know how to use a bench. He just didn't feel comfortable using the bench he had. Like he inherited that bench. So this will be the first year Hubert really had a chance to kind of build a team because he was basically coaching Roy's team the past 2 years because of COVID. Nobody really left. So it was basically, that was it. And then his recruiting class last year was the 2 kids he had, or 1 or 2 guys. That was only one against all the scholarships he had. So we'll see with Hubert how this works here. I did notice that he hired Marcus Page. He's joining the staff and Jackie Manuel's former role. Real quickly, can you explain exactly what Marcus Page's role will be? Because he's not an assistant coach, but he's on the staff, right?
Yeah, so this isn't actually fully finalized yet. Jackie Manuel's still technically listed on North Carolina's staff site, so he hasn't officially even left yet. But but actually, this is something that's been in the works for a couple of months now. I first sort of heard that it was looking like a possibility or probability back at the ACC tournament first week of March. And basically, Marcus Page has been playing overseas ever since he left North Carolina, finally ready to start his coaching career. And I mean, I went to school with Marcus Page, so I got to know him pretty well. He is one of the smartest basketball minds that I have personally been around. And so he's coming in. He's a guy who I think is going to have some, obviously he's not a full-on assistant. He's not going to be out on the road recruiting. He's not going to be doing that. But in terms of working out with the guards, absolutely that's something he can do. In terms of offering advice to an RJ Davis, to a Seth Trimble, to a Simeon Wilcher, I think he's going to be a really valuable aspect there. And then certainly he's going to get an opportunity. I'm interested to see when he gets together with Pat Sullivan, who does a lot of work with UNC's offense right now, like what sort of influences he can have there. The thing that obviously Hubert has done the last 2 seasons is he's played 2 sort of combo guards together with RJ Davis and Caleb Love. And Marcus, I think, was incredibly successful doing that when he was in college playing alongside Joel Berry. So I would be interested to know what sort of tips and tricks he can pass along that way. But certainly and he's very relatable. There's no way to look at Marcus Page coming back on staff as anything but a huge win for Hubert Davis and the players that he's got right now.
Yeah, I agree. When I saw it, I was like, oh, that's good. And I like the fact that that Hubert's reaching out to former players many that he helped recruit to come back to help with the program. I just think it's the rumors of Hubert's demise are just so far-fetched to me. Like I see people, JP Money pokes at me all the time about he still thinks they should have hired Wes Miller and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, the dude was just in the national championship game like 12 months ago. Like just everyone relax. He did it with 5 kids. Like, come on, let's let him build a team and see what happens from there. But the same vitriol was thrown at Roy Williams too. And Roy Williams is a legend. Like fire Roy chants would pop up all the time. And it would just boggle my mind that Carolina fans could turn so quickly at the smallest sign of danger. But we're spoiled, man. I'm 45. I think I've had all of 3-4 losing seasons like my entire life, like watching Carolina basketball. So it's like we don't know what to do when you have a season that's just like average or subpar or whatnot, like last year. So a lot of eyes on Chapel Hill, a lot of eyes on what Hubert's doing there. And of course, we didn't really get a chance to get into it, but real quick, Duke got a massive recruit, 5-star wing Isaiah Evans committed from North Mecklenburg here in North Carolina, Huntersville, I believe it's where it is. I think they won the state championship, if I'm not mistaken. They were one of the top teams in the state all year. Doesn't really appear like Carolina or Duke are falling apart in recruiting, does it? Because it seems like everywhere I turn, it's like this 5-star is going here, this 5-star is going there, and it's like an arms race between Hubert and John Shire.
Yeah, they're both fine. They're going to be okay. Obviously Duke this past year for Shire's first season, he had never even coached. I mean, he coached 1.5 games and he brought in the number 1 class, and you got 2 guys who are going to be first-round picks, and now he's bringing in the number 2 class. Hubert already, as we talked about, Hubert already has the number 1 class for 2024 signed up. with the potential to add more and to sort of see how that shakes out. But yeah, like both these things are going to be fun. The thing that I think is interesting is, and that I personally am like watching to see how this changes over the next couple of years. And I think you're starting to see it already at Duke, and I'll be interested to see what it looks like at North Carolina. But you're seeing not necessarily an aversion to like those top 5, top 10 guys, but there is much more of a concerted effort to get that borderline 4-star, 5-star talent that you know is not necessarily dead set on being a one and done player. Yeah. And I think as we've seen the past couple of seasons in college basketball, experience trumps talented youth. No matter how talented the youth is, experience wins out. And, you know, we saw that with Duke this year in the NCAA tournament, going up against a really old, really experienced, really tough Tennessee team. And Tennessee punched them in the mouth in the first minute of the game, and Duke couldn't necessarily, you know, match that level. So I think you're starting to see that already with these guys where, yes, they're still getting the 5 stars. Yes, they're still, you know, compiling these awesome recruiting classes. But I think the definition of what we look at in terms of, you know, recruiting wins is going to be changing here in the next couple of years, because I would argue the most impactful recruit North Carolina has gotten in the last 5 years is Brady Manick. And so, you know, the way that we balance high school versus transfer recruiting, I think, is sort of changing that picture. But also so are what the two programs are doing in terms of trying to get multi-year guys.
Follow him on Twitter at Brendan R. Marks, the Athletics Brendan Marks, giving you everything you need to know for UNC and Duke athletics. We've got football right around the corner, so we'll shift our focus to that after we get through June and everything else. So we'll have Brendan back on to talk about UNC and Duke. I got a kid that I'm following that's at Duke that just graduated from my alma mater here at East Forsyth. We do all their football. Quayshawn Brown, the wide receiver that's coming into Duke, they got a baller. Like that, he might be a 3-star coming in, but he's one of those kids when you watch him play on Friday, you're like, he's going to play on Sunday. Like he's one of those guys. He just stands out on the field, and I have no doubt he's going to do the same thing at Duke. I hate it because he's going to make me watch Duke football games over the fall, but but it is what it is. Brendan, appreciate you coming on, man.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me.
And that's it for franchise players for this Friday, April 28th, 2023. NFL draft later on tonight. You've got NBA playoffs, a doubleheader on ESPN, Sacramento taking on Golden State, Memphis taking on the Lakers. So you got that tonight as well. And then you've got more over across the weekend, NHL playoffs as well. The Kings trying to clinch later on tonight against the Islanders. We will talk to you soon.